Hey there and welcome back to another My Hero Academia review. And today we're taking a step away from the main storyline for a second to catch up with Uraraka and Froppy on their work study with Ryukyu. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy these characters, but being drawn away from the main plotline really sucks. I mean, it's a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. But before we get into all that though, I just want to let you guys know that I have read the manga and I'm aware of any relevant future plot points and details. But for the purpose of these reviews, I only like to talk about what the anime's presented up to now and not go back and forth between the manga and the anime. It just helps to keep the reviews streamlined and allows anime-only fans to watch along and join in too. But with that being said, let's get started. We start off with a little bit of a recap about what's happened in this arc via Midoriya's narration, explaining how each student's undertaken a work study in their winter vacation, with Deku reflecting that their first day on the job with Endeavor was brutal and they were hardly able to keep up with him, panting and gasping for breath while he stood around getting the job done without a drop of sweat. And honestly, if he wasn't a wife beater and a child abuser, he'd be a real Chad. Deku then thinks about how Uraraka and Sue are undertaking their work study with Ryukyu and thinks about how hard they must be working, only for the scene to transition to the girls assembled in the agency admiring Uraraka's new costume design, and having a big feast to celebrate the start of their work study program. Also, in Season 1, Uraraka specifically complained that her costume was skin tight and she didn't really like that and she wishes she was more specific. Well, maybe now would have been a good time to follow up on that and maybe have something a little different whilst retaining the same feel? No? Need more fan service and skin tight bodysuits? Okie dokie. Also, whilst it was funny for them to be doing this whilst Deku and the boys are getting ground down into a fine powder by Endeavor, this really just goes to show once again why Endeavor is such an unstoppable force. Because look at the difference in the first thing they did. I mean, this was the first thing that they did, right? Because it kind of implies it because Uraraka's showing off her new costume. Jesus, if only every job was like that on the first day. After the intro plays, we jump back into the agency where the interns are watching a news report about a wildfire that was supposedly caused by an explosion from a factory making illegal quirk-boosting drugs called Trigger. And after a bit of brief exposition about how Trigger's a bad substance and how it's a good thing that there'll be less of it, one of the sidekicks comes in and tells them that a bunch of chemicals that should have been at the factory are unaccounted for and were likely stolen before the explosion, meaning the factory fire was probably not an accident and was done to eliminate evidence of the theft. So yeah, that's probably going to be the hook of the episode. And honestly, I have a sinking suspicion that this is going to be very, very filler. I never really thought I'd miss Endeavor, but that whole storyline was starting to heat up, pardon the pun, so it's a shame to have to leave and then come back to it later. We then move on to Selkie's ship, where he's signaling to a stateless ship, demanding they halt because they're sailing through Japan's sovereign waters without permission. He starts off by threatening them, and then when that doesn't work, he attempts to reason with them by using his cutesy voice and face, much to his sidekick's despair. And I get where she's coming from. It really isn't that cute, the face he's pulling. More creepy than anything else. Also, even if this is a largely filler episode, I am glad that we're revisiting Selkie. I really enjoyed his character all the way back in Season 2, and I'm glad he's being brought back into the story. Although, I would have liked it if he had more relevance than just being a filler side hero. At this point, one of the crew members notices somebody on the stateless ship, who pulls out a syringe filled with what is most likely Trigger, and injects himself. He powers up, and then his skin opens up. Trypophobia, anyone? And then he releases a dense smog, surrounding the ship and obscuring their vision. On Selkie's ship, Selkie and the crew determine that the trigger that the man used must have been made from the chemicals that were stolen from the factory mentioned earlier, and that there are probably more chemicals on the ship. As they emerge from the smokescreen, however, they find that the ship has escaped and that it's no longer appearing on the radar. Why didn't he jump into the water and use his super fast swimming to stay near the ship? The smokescreen would have been useless underwater. Oh well. Gotta let the plot continue for the episode, I guess. Anyway, realizing that they have Trigger, they realize they need some extra muscle and a way to search from the air. So Selkie requests to team up with the Ryukyu agency, who accept, kickstarting the main plot of the episode. The two teams meet up on what looks like an airstrip and start to plan their next moves. The start of the conversation itself isn't really anything to write home about, although there were two instances of creepy cutesy Selkie with Froppy and Nejire doting over how cute it is, and Ryukyu finding it disturbingly not cute. We also get treated to a little bit of a Froppy reunion with the crew, with them congratulating her on receiving her provisional license. We don't really focus much on Froppy these days, so it was nice to get this little moment to acknowledge how much she's grown as a hero and a character, even with pretty limited chances to actually shine. I feel like every time her character gets a little bit of spotlight, the writing always takes advantage of that and really develops her as much as it can. Selkie then gets serious and tells them that he urgently needs them on the beach, for a fan service scene with all of them in frilly bathing suits showing off. I miss Endeavor. But I guess this scene does serve a little bit of a purpose in showing aspects of hero work that the characters like Endeavor or All Might don't really adhere to. Rest and relaxation. I just can't imagine Endeavor taking the boys out for a beach day whilst he sips cocktails. It actually does make a nice narrative contrast and shows that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You can achieve the same objective by approaching the job in many different ways, and it doesn't make you less of a hero. At least, that's what I took away from the scene. I'm not really sure if they actually care about that though, or they just want an excuse for bikini scenes, and they decide to throw in an inspirational speech about balancing fighting evil and enjoying peace. Oh well. Also, side note, I'm glad they resisted the urge to make Selkie a deranged pervert leering at the underage girls frolicking on the beach. Let's just be glad Mineta wasn't here. We then cut to the villains who are chilling on the boat with the illicit cargo, hiding in a cave. Knowing that they're being followed and their communications are probably being monitored, they discuss what they should do, deciding that since they can't risk contacting the client, that they just have to stick to the plan, moving the cargo after dark and relying on injecting themselves with Trigger if they have to. And it would actually be an ominous scene if these weren't random nobodies in a filler episode. We then time jump to sunset where the newly assembled team are going over their plans to hunt down the villains, with Ryukyu and Nejire taking to the skies, whilst the rest of the team stay on the ship. After taking to the seas, Selkie orders Sirius to keep listening out for his Morse code, before he puts Froppy on his back and dives into the water, swimming underneath the boat, likely so he can ambush the drug traffickers. And then we're treated to a quick montage of them searching for the villains, and not finding them. Thrilling stuff. Back at the villain cave, the villains are heading out only to be instantly discovered by Selkie, who uses his sonar to direct the air team and the ship team to their location. Bad luck, fellas. Try again next time. Anyway, Trypophobia Man releases his smokescreen, but bad luck for him. This is why Selkie went underwater in the first place. Imagine if he did this the first time they saw the boat. Would have saved the day straight away. Anyway, he uses his sonar to find his way through the smog and destroys the dude with a punch before he hears somebody in the bridge flicking some switches. And then he obliterates the next goon and sends him flying through the window. Ouch. This guy's not holding back. Unfortunately for them though, the last guy managed to get into a seaplane, start it up, and fly off before anybody could notice and try to stop him. Seems like a plot convenience to me, but whatever. Froppy tries to attach to it with her tongue, but the plane goes too high for her to reach, leading to Sirius flying Uravity on a torpedo at the plane. A bit extra, but I do like the cut of her jib. As she flies through the air thanks to her zero gravity, she remembers how she rushed in to save Deku but didn't think it through. Although I'm pretty sure she did well in that instance, but okay. She then fires off a new gadget from her gauntlet that grapples her up to the plane, where she uses the world famous Gunhead martial arts to destroy that fool. Seriously, she needs to send Gunhead a fruit basket or something to thank him. She uses these moves literally every single fight, and usually it lets her win. Unfortunately though, knocking out the pilot of a plane usually makes the plane go down, and this is no exception. The episode then tries to bait you into thinking that she might go down with the plane because she refuses to get out and save herself because she's worried the drugs will leak into the local ecosystem, which, whilst noble, felt a little out of place considering there's been literally zero reference to her ever caring about the environment like this at all. It just felt like a last minute excuse to show off her true potential. Ryukyu then enters mentor mode and tells her to make the plane weightless. A pretty tough ask. And asks whether she's giving up when Uravity tries to back out. And now we get to see another type of mentor. The type that simply makes you believe in yourself and helps build you up in a positive way. And it's quite the contrast to Endeavor's competitive mentality indeed. Anyway, after Ryukyu and Nejire both blast the plane, Uravity manages to make it weightless, allowing Ryukyu to grab hold of it and land safely, getting inside just in time to see Uravity blowing chunks in the cockpit. And then we finish with even more bikini-clad adventures on the beach, whilst the two heroes discuss how they don't know who ordered the drugs, just that they were heading for Europe. So I doubt we're going to hear about that for a little while. And then there's a post-credits scene with some random blue dude talking about humanity's salvation or something like that. And I'm not sure if this is part of the current arc or future stuff, but I'm intrigued. And yeah, that's the end of the episode. And this episode was okay, but it kind of ruined the flow of the storyline for me. It honestly felt a bit like a fever dream. Here's some random beach scenes. Oh, we took down some villains and made a plane float. And now we're back to the beach again. Bikini time. Like, what? It felt like a standalone story written by an 8-year-old who wanted to have every possible genre and event crammed into the shortest possible time limit. And I also take back what I said last time about wanting to see all the other work studies. Take me back to Endeavor and Hawks. Take me back! But anyway, that's just my opinion, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it? Hate it? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.